right. Hi everyone. I'm Asa. I'm a grateful recovering addict and alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 21st, 2018. I have a sponsor. My sponsor has a sponsor. I sponsor other women. I have multiple service positions. As Donovan stated, I'm in the herd of everything. Anytime God places something in front of me, I have learned to say yes. Sometimes begrudgingly, right? But I know that it keeps me sober. And fortunately for me, he continues to place all these women and people in my life and these opportunities to be of service to him. I have no clue what I'm going to say today. I'm excited to hear what I'm going to say. And I say that because as a result of working the 12 steps, I have now become a vessel for something greater than me that speaks through me. And sometimes I have no clue what rendition I'm going to say, what part of my story, because I'm 45 years old and it's been a hell of a damn journey and story to get here, right? Just a little bit about my background. I've got two younger brothers. My mom and dad both suffer from alcoholism and substance use. And so what I was grown up in or raised in, the environment, it was not very healthy at all. It was extremely toxic. My parents were not only users, they were swingers as well. And so they were partaking in a lot of sexual activities in our house, which led me to be susceptible to that type of behavior. And so also would like to share with you all that I'm an empath. What an empath is someone that feels other people's feelings and emotions, their energies. And so I was tapped into that ability at a really, really, really young age. And so the things that were done around me, I absorbed a lot because I did not, well, A, I didn't have the tools. B, I had no clue what was going on. I felt really different as a kid, very standoffish. I isolated a lot. I was full of fear from as long as I can remember. I didn't know, what fight was going to be next in my household. I didn't know if, what would transpire from day to day. And so I lived on edge. And then again, those energies of alcohol and drugs coming in and out of the house and just random people. My parents cooked meth, so it was just a lot of really bad people. And I say that not because they were users, but because of the behaviors that they were partaking in. And so, yeah, again, I felt these people coming in and out. And so I was like always so full of anxiety and overwhelmingness. And I always, I think around the age of 8 or 9, as a matter of fact, like Mother's Day this year, we're at my grandma's house and we're looking through photo albums and there's a picture of me and my two brothers with beer cans to our mouth. I had to be maybe 9, 10 years old. That means they were 5 and 1, right? Because we're all 5 years apart. And so, we're like, there's my baby brother, my middle brother, and then and we're all like got beer cans to our mouth and there's grown-ups around us just pointing and laughing in the picture like it was hilarious, right? This was like a normal thing. Like drinking and drugs was so normal to me that I was conditioned in that environment. And by the time I realized that this isn't normal, what my parents partook in wasn't normal, it was a little too late. I was already addicted. It was an escape for me. I didn't have to feel everybody else if I drank or smoked weed. And I'd started doing that at such a young age that, again, I didn't have any other outlet, right? And my parents, I don't want to take away from them. I can't blame them. I'm not trying to sit here and do that because I feel as if they were doing the best that they could. I mean, we always had a roof over our head. Our lights and power was on. We had clothes. We had stylish shoes. We had cheerleading, football, soccer. We were engaged in things. So I don't want to take away from like them being the best parents that they knew how to be. But my mom was 14 when she had me, and my dad was 20. And so she was still a child herself. And of course, my dad was as well. And me and my brothers have different dads. So I had a stepfather come into the picture around the age of 5 or 6. And so my father, and again, the co-parenting relationship was there, but they all three were in active use together. So it was like all the behaviors together. Ironically, I think that was the only thing that kind of kept them co-parenting, if you want to call it that, because of they did the same things, right? It was like the same dealers, the same whatever, the same parties, the same everything. My parents never really left us at the house alone that much as a child. They took us everywhere with them, which they thought they were being like the best parents of the world. At least we take our kids with us. We don't pawn them off on people. But the situations and the circumstances that they would put us in were not healthy. There was always law enforcement involved. There was always some type of fight. And so it was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not at the babysitter, but I shouldn't damn be here, So it's just a wild, wild journey as a child. There was also a lot of molestation. My uncle molested me, and my mom actually molested me as well. And I have had confrontation with her. Our relationship is not healthy at all to this day. She's still in active use. She still plays the victim. She still blames everyone around her. And I'm not here to justify her behavior, but I did discover that the way that she was shown love was the way that she was showing me love. And she thought, I'm assuming that she thought at that age of 14 that was how you showed your kids love, because that was what was done to her whole childhood. That's how I've had to heal from it, right? I can't hold resentment for that, for the situations and the circumstances that I was put in. I've had to heal from that, and that was my form of healing by, creating this narrative in my brain that, some people's definition of love is different, and it looks different from person to person, and it looks different from time to time as we evolve and grow. And so, again, I had the empath stuff, the molestation, and I was just running for myself. And I did for many, 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 many years. I found alcohol and then marijuana, and then it went to cocaine, and then hallucinogens with psilocybin, and then, crack, and then MDMA, and then acid, and then it was anything that took me out of self. And this went on for probably 38 years of my life. I say that now because I got sober at 38. So probably 28, and there's so many horror stories that I could tell you all, but at the end of the day, I think the feelings are still the same for everyone, right? It's the guilt, the shame, it's the non-acceptance of self, it's the not knowing how to love oneself, right? For me, that's what it was. I didn't even know what love was, and I was seeking it in all these outside things, right? Like I was seeking it in the drugs and alcohol for a long time. Then I was seeking it in cheerleading for the acceptance and love that fellowship kind of brought to me. Then I was seeking it on a soccer team. Then I sought it in a gang, and I got initiated in a gang probably at the age of 17. And that was a whole nother whirlwind of my life. Like that shit took me down some really dark paths of criminal engagement and activity. I was sex trafficked. You name it, it happened. And I'm not here to brag about any of this. It's not my reasoning for doing this. But I allowed myself to get put in these really vulnerable situations to feel some type of love. I was allowing myself to be conditioned and groomed by men. And I had no clue. I thought this was a normal part. Like I thought this was love. And all the while, I'm seeking this love outside of myself. And what I discovered was that I had to learn how to love myself first. And what I thought my definition of love was for so many years, right, was not the love that I deserved. And so I ended up getting pregnant in my senior year of high school. I still don't know who my child's father is because I was seeking love in those high school relationships, and I had like 3 people tested, DNA tested, and 3 of them were not the father, and there's probably 4 more. That in itself caused a lot of guilt and shame, and not being able to tell my daughter who her father is. And she got to the age where she didn't want to find out, and that's her journey, right? Well, that was her journey. But, the powerlessness of the drugs and alcohol, I couldn't even be a present mom to my child. I abandoned her. My dad molested her when she was 11. And DSS got in my life, and I was smoking meth, smoking crack, and I was on methadone, a really high dosage. And they had lined this like safety plan to get her back. And I maybe went to one meeting and one alcohol and drug like agency to try to, one meeting with them to try to get her back. And then I couldn't stay sober, you know? And I ended up not doing the plan ultimately. And I hauled ass and skipped state, like 3 states, and started dating this drug dealer that was a journeyman and did shutdowns on paper mills all over. And so I started being the tool room lady and doing all these things. All the while I was just getting high and just running, numbing, and could not stop. I couldn't stop. And it got to the point where, you know, DSS took all of my custody. And I wasn't in her life for probably 6 years. It's wild because when it happened, you know, my parents weren't sober. They couldn't get her, right? So she went to one of my best friends in high school, her mom and her, which were godsends, and they raised my child in a very healthy, structured home. And I will be forever grateful for that. In the midst of that, though, I was like, these people hate me. Fuck them. They're trying to take my child. They don't know what's good for my child. They don't know what's good for me. But I couldn't even function and hold a job down, much less keep my eyes open, right? You know, because I was so high all the time and had her in some really, really dangerous environments because I was trying to be like my mom and dad and take my kid everywhere with me. And I was stealing from Walmart, you know, dope boy house, it didn't matter. I just drug her along with me. And anyway, where she went was where she needed to be. God had all that in his hands, and I'm grateful for that. And so around when she was probably a week before she turned 17, she called me. She found me on Facebook, and I was being trafficked out of the Econo Lodge on Ashley Phosphate. I'm from Charleston, so, you know, I'm actually from Moncks Corner, which was a beautiful ride on the way up, but that's another story. And she called me, and I was at the Econo Lodge, and I was involved in a lot of fucking fuckered shit, you know. Excuse my language. Can I cuss? I hope I can. Okay, great.
Cuss away.
Okay, great. I've already done that, so I'm like trying to, my apologies on that. And so she came to me to the hotel, and I had her, I was letting her smoke weed. All I wanted was her to love me and accept me. And in her eyes, I did no wrong. Like, she didn't care. She had this undying, like, love for me. And I couldn't understand it because I was such a piece of shit, and I couldn't be a mom, and I couldn't fucking take care of her, and I abandoned her, and all these things. And I had so much guilt and shame from that. And she did not care. She embraced me as I was. And for 6 months, she hotel hopped with me, you know, couch surfed, abandoned houses we stayed in a couple of nights. I mean, it was wild. Anything to be with her mom, she was doing. And I let her smoke weed. I was letting her smoke meth, and then I was trying to tell her she was had started dating a gang member, and I was trying to say, you can't be with him. He's in a gang. But here I am. I was in a gang. He was my age, and I was like, he's too old for you. He doesn't have a job. He smokes. He does drugs. You can't be with him. Like, here I was trying to be this mom to my child, and she really had no respect in that remorse. She was like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? You're just coming back in my life. And I love this guy, and I want to be with him. You know, I had to beat up like twice. I didn't stop them from being together. They ended up running away together. And I didn't see her for like 2 weeks. And I remember I got a phone call from Trident Hospital stating that she had been in a car accident and I needed to come immediately. And I was so fucking messed up, and the drugs had so much control over me that I spent hours trying to get well because I was dope sick. You know, all I cared about was getting that drug. I just got a call that my daughter's in the hospital, just been in a really bad car accident. And I couldn't put the drugs down long enough to go see about my child, who had just come back into my life. you know? That's the powerlessness of this disease, you know? That's the control that it takes a hold of you. I never did find a needle that day. I ended up going to the hospital, and everything happens for a reason, because my conscience was clear from chemicals for probably about 12 hours to where I could be present. And when I walked into the hospital, I was met with the chaplain, and they said that my daughter wasn't going to make it. Feels like a bad dream still. So I had to sit beside her, and I couldn't get a hold of any of my family because I'd already burned those bridges. And for 7 hours, I sat beside her. And they were keeping her alive on epinephrine, and I finally got a hold of my family, and they came towards the end. And feeling her energy leave her body was one of the most profound spiritual experiences I've ever had. And I don't know if you've ever sat with someone as they passed, but there's this energy that you can almost see. You feel it. I felt it in my soul, and I wanted to know what the hell that was. And in those moments, I realized that there was more to this life than the mundane and the life I was living. Chasing drugs, engaging in criminal activity, the gang. At that point, it was prostitution because I had gotten away from my trafficker, and I felt like that was the only thing that, you know, I was worthy of doing. And it just led me to start seeking, you know. 2 years, it's crazy. For 2 more years, I literally had nothing to live for. I think I was subconsciously trying to kill myself in the behaviors that I was exhibiting. That's what you would have thought, you know. What's wild, May 16th, 2016, she passed. On November 3rd, on her birthday that year, I got locked up. Told myself I was going to do something different, and didn't do anything different. The following year, the day we buried her, got locked up again. No, I'm sorry, it was 2 years later, on the day we buried her, I got locked up again. Because I'd sat that time. I caught a bunch of charges. I don't know. I've been arrested over 63 times, 60 times. Got probably 42 felonies on our record. That's a whole nother fucking day of stories. But it never stopped me. Every time I got out, I'd say, oh, I'm not going to shoot it this time. I'm just going to smoke it, or I'm just going to eat it. I'm not going to do heroin. I'm just going to do meth. It'll be fine. And every time I found myself back in those same situations. And every time when I sat in jail, I'd have a moment of clarity without the chemicals in my conscience, and I could see a little clearer. And the last time I was arrested, I was facing 11 years because I caught some charges up in Manning. I ain't never even been to Manning. But that county jail wasn't that bad. And I had gotten sentenced to drug court in Manning, which again I didn't live there. And so I transferred it down to Dorchester County, and then I ended up catching more charges, and then that was the last time I got arrested. So I was facing 11 years, and I had come to the level of acceptance of that. I'm okay, I'm going to prison, whatever, like, this is the end, right? Like, something's got to change. If it takes me going to prison for 11 years, that's what it's going to take. I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired, I just wanted to change. And I had no clue how to do that. I didn't surround myself with people in recovery. I didn't know anybody in recovery. I didn't know about AA. I didn't think I knew about AA. I'll tell you that, and that's part of my story. I didn't know about any of that. All I knew was the lifestyle I had lived for so long. And they were bringing meetings in the jail for, they were bringing meetings in the jail. And I met some women in AA, and then there was just a series of events that just came to me, and it was pretty wild how everything aligned. And everything I believe is written before we come on this earth. And I have a lot of spiritual woo-woo things about me, and I'm very, very woo-woo. I'm called that. I'm at a level of acceptance of that. I'm okay with that. I love crystals, Reiki, sound healing, all the things, right? And so all these things started to align in there. And that book, The Untethered Soul, was one of those books. And The Wise Heart by Jack Kornfield, which is about the Buddhist spiritual principles of the Buddhist psychology. The Living Untethered, a book about habits. All these self-help books started coming to me, and I just started reading because, again, I'm going up the road. I'm just laying down doing my time. And I remember one night I was laying in my bunk, and I was like, my hands and my feet started burning. Like, they were on fire, like to the touch. You could touch it. It was like so hot, and I was like freaking out. And I was telling the CIA, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and the CIA was like, Langston, lay down. I'm like, nah, I think I need to go to the infirmary. Like, something's wrong with me. Like, this ain't right. You know, she's like, oh, you're going to be all right, you know. I'm like, oh, God. And in that moment, I hit my knees, and I prayed. I prayed. I didn't know what I was praying to. I didn't know what I was praying for. I just knew I wanted something different, and I knew whatever was happening to me, you know, I couldn't explain. And the next day, I was on the rec yard, and there's this African-American lady that was always coming in for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. But the 11 months I was in there, she probably was in there 9 times, you know, and PR out and get out, you know, and she just would, I thought she was batshit crazy because she talked to herself, and she was talking to people that weren't there and all the things. And she would, you know, she overheard my story and me telling one of my friends what had happened the night before. And she stopped dead in her tracks and she said, ma'am, I know you don't know me, but do you know what that means? And I said, no. She said, you're about to walk a new path. God has another path for you. And I was like, this woman is crazy. You know? But that's what happened. My public defender came the next day, and they said, oh, by the way, the solicitor wants to offer you drug court again. And if you guys know anything about drug court system, you don't get offered that twice. And I was like, what the hell? I couldn't believe it. And so you had to have an address to get out in drug court. So there was a girl in this house that we used to cook a lot of meth in, and she actually just got raided, and she was inside with me, and she was like, you just use my address. So I got a girlfriend of mine to call the drug court director that was outside, you know, and say she was my Aunt Ashley, and give the address to the trap house so I could get out of drug court, right? And then I had my old drug dealer who kept money on my books the whole time I was in jail come pick me up from jail. And he got me a hotel room, he got me some clothes, he got me a phone, gave me a pack, and sent me on my way, right? And I was like, what the hell? Like, that was the only way I knew. The only life I knew was either sell my body, sell drugs, or steal from Walmart and all the stores, which I was no trespass in every fucking county. And I didn't sleep for 4 days. I didn't use any drugs, but I couldn't sleep. The energy from the substances, it was like, what the hell? And the people that I was around, I was like absorbing their energy. I was like, what the hell? This is not good. And I remember I was supposed to go to counseling treatment team, you know, and go to meetings. I was supposed to go to 3 meetings that week, and I didn't do any of it. And when I got to drug court the following week, little did I know, the judge was actually in the program. I didn't know that then. I know now he's a very dear friend of mine. And he was like, yeah, so you got to do 90 meetings in 90 days. You know, he sanctioned me and lit the fire under my ass. And I was like, okay, I can't keep going like this. And a bunch of people reached out to me that were in drug court that I ran with. And they're like, hey, you got to get out that hotel. You got to quit selling drugs, dude, because, like, you're going to go to prison. Like, you know, you're either going to go one way or you're going to go another. And it's going to be your choice right now, you know. And so one of them said, have you heard about an Oxford House? I'm like, no, never heard of it. You know, they're like, here, call these numbers. So, well, if you've ever called an Oxford House, nobody ever answers the damn phone. And nobody answered the phone. And I left a message, multiple messages. And then I went into my first 12-step meeting. And when I went into my first 12-step meeting, I seen so many people that I was running with on the streets that looked totally different. B, they were talking like I had never heard them. They were happy, they were laughing, and it was genuine joy, right? And I was like, there's no way these people are sober, you know? And as I sat in that first meeting, it was wild because, again, I'm coming off of all these drugs. Well, I had been sober for, probably 7 months because I was using in jail till I didn't. And, you know, I was like, these people, how in the hell do they know what the hell is going on with me? Because everything I was experiencing and thinking and feeling, they were talking about in the meeting. And I know now what that is. It's the Christ consciousness within the rooms, that we're all similar. We're not unique as I thought we were. I thought I was the only one, And to come to find out, there's so many like me. And in those moments, I felt like I was at home. I felt like these are my people. Because they were able to talk about some things that they were experiencing, and I was experiencing this same stuff internally. And when I left that meeting that night, the phone rang, and it was my friend Holly, and she had been at the 12-step meeting, and she was the president of that Oxford house I called. And that was a whole nother moment of alignment, And all these things started to align. And it was suggested that I get a sponsor. Actually, it was court ordered that I get a sponsor. And I had gotten a couple sponsors. I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know. I wasn't given direction. I needed to call every day. I needed to read the 164. I needed to do this. I needed to do that. The first couple sponsors I have never really gave me any direction. And so when I was like, I got to do something. Everybody's talking about these steps, and my sponsor's not doing these steps with me, and it was suggested that I get a girl, and I really wanted to get a guy. I wanted to get Frank Crump, but he kind of told me, like, my first meeting was Frank Crump in the Big Book study on Tuesday nights at the Big House, Blue House, and that man lit the fire under my ass that night. And anyway, so I asked Frank Crump, and he was like, yeah, it's not suggested. Because I knew I could manipulate and get away with things with men because I'd done that for so long. That was the person that I was. And I was ready, but, still had those parts of me that I wanted to hold on to. I hadn't done any step work. And I ended up asking a young lady not young lady, she was older than me, but younger lady, that had partaken in a lot of the activities that I did. And she was facing some federal charges in federal drug court, and I was in drug court facing some really big time. And there was a lot of synchronicity in that. And then, we had a lot in common. We knew a lot of the same people from the streets, and I just felt really comfortable in that space to get vulnerable with her and talk about some of the things because I knew she had experienced a lot of the things that I had. And she took me through the steps. Going through the steps was try not to be negative here. It sucked. In the midst of it, right? I didn't know the power that would come when I finished. And when I was doing the step one, I had to read the first 164. My sponsor had me start with the 11th step, right, which was page 86 through 89 in the Big Book and on Awakening. And I did that for probably 3 months as I was reading the 164. And we would meet weekly, and we would read together out of the Big Book what I read the night before. And things just started to align and happen even more. And I had grown this conscious connection, and I really didn't have a concept of a higher power because I was angry at God. My daughter was gone. My mom had molested me. I'd been through I was raped so many times, being trafficked. I couldn't figure out why I had to go through all the things that I had to go through and why God would do that. And I blame God. It was all God's fault. I'm doing the steps, you kind of figure out it's all your fault, but there's that. But the powerlessness, I could not point out because I felt like I had the power. I had what I had between my legs, which I controlled a lot of people with. I had dope in my pocket and money in my pocket, and I felt like I had the most power. I had no clue what that definition of powerless was until it was explained to me. And as I pointed out in my story, the moments of powerlessness, my whole entire life, I was powerless, Coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, I had felt that energy that day when my daughter passed. I knew there was something greater. I didn't have a definition of that, and I didn't have a concept of God. I believed that my sponsor believed, and that the other women around me in our sponsorship line believed. And I kind of leaned on their beliefs to begin with until I was able to create and feel a concept, right? I made a decision to turn my life and my will over to him. And that was a powerful experience. I remember, our sponsorship line getting together as like 21 women and getting all on our knees and surrendering. It was a group thing. And the tears that flowed in that moment when I realized that I didn't have to control everything around me, that I could give it all to something greater than myself. It was so relieving, I really didn't realize in those moments what that meant, right? I came to discover what that meant later on, and I still, to this day, feel that. When I did that searching and fearless moral inventory, I had to have my sponsor point out a lot of damn things. The plot twist, I don't know how you all do the steps. I know there are lots of ways to do them. There's no wrong way. And my sponsor had me write down a resentment list of everyone I resented. I had 67 people on there, right? Pages and pages. Why I was resentful, the causes and the effects, right? And then I had to write my parts out. And how was I selfish, self-seeking, dishonest, and frightened, right? What did I do because of that? And what I noticed was patterns in my behavior, A. B, my sponsor pointed out some really fucked up shit. Truth that I didn't want to look at myself. I didn't want to accept in myself of who I was and what I had become. And I remember adding her to my 4-step because I was like, yeah, this is fucked up, and having to write my part out on her. And as I got through, you wouldn't think the way that I was living that I was afraid of anything, and I found out that I was so full of fear. I mean, my fears list was pages long. I was afraid of everything. And I had no clue what that, I did not know. Again, my definitions were so skewed because of the drugs and alcohol that I had no concept or grasp of reality, One of the things that was really eye-opening for me was the sex harms, right? And I had so many people. I had to group the people because there were women, there were Johns, there were rapists, there were boyfriends in high school, there were this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, all these relationships that I had been in that I had to damn write down and do, right? It was a gang member section where I had to list all so I did mine in like groups, because if I would have had to sit down and do all those harms, like I probably would still be doing step work. Let's keep it 100, She allowed me to do that, but breaking all of that down, I was attracting the same type of men, the same unhealthy men, this obsessive, possessive, I was psycho, jealous, envious, controlling, you name it. And, she had suggested to not be in a relationship for the first year. And, of course, I went against her suggestions. And I started dating this guy early in recovery. And I had no intentions I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I did think that we would maybe one day fall in love. Like 5 months into recovery, 6 months into recovery. But when I broke it off with him after she suggested it, me not be in a relationship, he wasn't emotionally stable or emotionally sober to accept that, and he returned to use and has been on this. As a matter of fact, I think he just got out of here. He's been on this journey he has had bouts of recovery, and I'm not saying that I'm the cause of that, but it's just another way that I harmed someone, right? Still harming. And I understand now why they suggest that first year is because we bring ourselves into the relationship, and until we allow those spaces to heal within us, we're going to continue to carry that into and treat people the way that we've always treated people. And I can't say that after that first year I was healthy in a relationship. Every time I tried to get into a relationship or attempted to, and I felt any type of ill feeling within me, like I couldn't trust them, or like I found myself obsessing about them, like where they at, who they talking to, why is that girl looking at him like that in the meeting, right? Like all of these crazy antics in my brain, you know? Oh, he wants her, but I'm delusional and I think I'm a mind reader, right? But if I found myself bringing any of that type of behavior in a relationship, I'd cut it off immediately because I had gotten to a point, in my recovery processes that I just didn't want to feel those feelings. I didn't get sober to feel like that, right? And I would feel myself start spiraling spiritually, right? Like I would find myself like gossiping, judging, partaking in these behaviors that I have grown so much to get out of, right? Doing the fifth step was a profound experience for me, and I've done multiple since then, and I've done the steps so many times. I've done lots of 4-step inventories. I do lots of fear inventories because I'm still riddled with fear. 7 years sober. It's a thing. It doesn't go away, right? You can do the maintenance on it. You can do the work. Fears are still always going to crop up. Well, they do for me. Can't say what your experience is going to be, but that's what happens for me. But it was profound to go through. When I had to write, as I was doing my fifth step, my sponsor wrote down all my character defects. And so those pages of things, and again, I was like, oh shit, I can't believe you just called me all that, right? But in the reality, that was the truth. And looking at that piece of paper was, again, an eye-opening experience. But she also told me that I never had to be that person again. And she gave me an asset and wrote it on a little piece of paper for every defect and put it in a jar. And for 90 days or however many days those defects were in there, because there was a fucking lot of them. I felt like I was doing that shit for like 6 months. I drew an asset every day, and I focused on being that person on that piece of paper, right? And what I discovered was I gradually started becoming that person. Because I didn't no longer want to be the person that I once was. When I humbly asked for God to remove my shortcomings, I wanted to hold on to some things, And I feel as if I still have reservations with some of those things, my shortcomings. However, I've surrendered pretty much all of those. I had to use my shortcomings for many, many years as survivor techniques to get through life. And some of the things I was not ready to let go. And again, I'm aware of those things. And I do, again, usually when my shortcomings come, it's because I'm not in alignment, When I'm making the list of the people I had harmed was easy because it was proof right there who I had harmed. Making the amends, though, I had to pray for willingness because I didn't want to tell my parents. I didn't want to apologize anything I wasn't there yet. The first amends I made was at my daughter's graveside, which was probably one of the most emotional times of recovery that I've had. And I visit her often, and she's with me every day, right now even, and I believe that. And my amends to her is living and helping a lot of moms get their kids back and guiding them through the processes that it takes to get sober and stay sober to be present moms for their kids. And that's the way that I make my amends to her. Opening up mommy and me houses so moms can get their kids back in Oxford House, I'm still making amends. I'll always be making amends. I do realize that as I've continued to work these steps, that amends list gets shorter and the fears get shorter and the resentments get shorter. Because as a result of the steps, I have this conscious connection with a higher power. And when I do harm on others or when I feel fear crop up, I can identify that and work through that in that moment. And if I owe an apology, I can make it immediately. Because again, I'm very bold, brash, I speak truth. Some people aren't ready to hear the truth sometimes, and it can be very harmful to people, and I've come to that realization. And so I actually am a communication major, and I've learned to communicate effectively to people, and everyone learns in a different manner, and everyone takes things differently, and so I can read people and communicate with them so I'm not as harsh. It's been a process to be able to do that. Making those amends, and again, it goes into step 10 as I'm talking about, taking that personal inventory, and when I'm wrong, promptly admitting that. Again, in that nightly inventory I suck at, I actually suck at 10 steps, period. And that's why I have to do so many 4 steps in fear inventories, because it gets away from me, right? Like I'm not that I forget, but I forget, you know? And then I'll remember during the day. But it's just crazy how, as the years have gone by, I've gotten in the habit of it just becomes a natural thing. And I can take a look at myself, you know, be a better human tomorrow than I am today. The 11th step, that's a constant connection with something greater than I. And every day, and I don't say every day I do on Awakening, but every morning I send a gratitude list to my sponsorship line, and my sponsor now has 41 years. She's amazing. She's very wise. I've learned so much and peeled so many layers. I went through the traditions at this point multiple times, and we're doing the steps a different way, and she kind of pulls in the steps and the traditions, and it's just a totally different experience this time. And every time I have worked the steps, I've worked it with a different woman in recovery to get a different experience. I probably won't ever leave this sponsor that I have now. Unless she passes, and I know that's at some point going to happen. She's 75 years old, but she is absolutely amazing. And she calls me on my fucking shit. She doesn't sugarcoat anything, and it's great, right? And she's really big on being of service. And right now, I currently only have 3 sponsees, and my sponsees have long-term recovery, and that's where I've found, you know, is good for me with time. I don't want to do a disservice to anyone. I don't really sponsor newcomers, right? I don't have the time and the effort that they deserve and need, and that's okay. And my sponsor tells me that's okay. Sometimes I feel as if I'm not doing enough, you know, for the newcomers. But there's other ways and forms of facets that I could be of service to newcomers, not necessarily taking them through the steps. As a result of this program, though, my life has drastically changed, right? When Donovan was saying all these positive things about me, it's so awkward still to hear those nice things, right? It's just really, really weird. I can't take credit for any of it. It's not me. I'm the vessel, right? I've had an opportunity to expand the Oxford houses down in the Low Country. I've opened 38 houses in the last 5 years, you know, to provide sober living housing for individuals that are seeking recovery from substance use. You know, that led me to becoming a peer support specialist. And I worked in a 301 down there along with Oxford House. I've always worked 2 full-time jobs and been in college full-time for the last 5 years. It's wild. Like, I don't know how the fuck I do it, right? Like, I have no clue. I don't even ask why anymore. I ask what is this teaching me in every situation, right? And I was in tech. I got my associates. I'm in my last semester starting next week. My last semester of my bachelor's degree in communication and sociology, and I got accepted to the master's program, and I start that in spring for public administration because I want to change policies. And y'all see my name one day, vote Asa Wilson. And I say Asa Wilson because I'm getting married Halloween, which would have never fucking happened had it not been a result of working the 12 steps and becoming this healthy woman to attract this healthy man that's in recovery as well. He's got 5 years. We just bought a house in December. We just got custody of his 10-year-old back. God has given me an opportunity to be a mother again to a child whose mom is just like I was. Can't make this shit up, guys. It's fucking wild. You know? And I can go on and on and on about the outside things, right? But my God is love. It's the feeling. It's what I give others. And today I can sit here before you and tell you that I genuinely love myself. And that my definition of love is this agape love for all, this godly love for everyone and anyone, and I will help anyone at the drop of the dime. And they say that the most broken God gives the most challenges and you know, these obstacles, and I wholeheartedly believe that because every day I'm presented with a different obstacle or challenge or speed hump, and I'm able to get through that without using or drinking because I have tools today. And the more healed I become, the more broken I attract. And people come to me for help. and my phone is constantly ringing. And supermarkets and Walmart. Well, I really don't go to Walmart. Target, um, you know, David's Bridal when I was bridal shop. Everywhere I go, people approach me that I don't even know. And they tell me their whole life story in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes. And they just want to be heard. They don't want anything. They just want to be heard. It's just wild that as I continue to heal, and now let me tell you, like, this journey has not just been the 12 steps for me, right? The 12 steps is my foundation. The 12 steps is what I go back to. The 12 steps is what I continue to do because it gave me this freeness that I had never experienced in my whole entire life and still does to this day, right? But I discovered that I have some mental health challenges. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I have generalized anxiety disorder. I actually have complex PTSD, but that's a whole nother thing. And so what I've leaned into is seeing a therapist, and I do some EMDR. And I don't know if you guys know what that is, bilateral stimulation. You rewire the neural pathways in your brain to go back to traumatizing situations and rewrite the story pretty much, and rewire those neural pathways in your brain. And is it immediate? No, it's a process, and I've been through these processes and identifying these traumas and working through them, and I will continue to do so. I also do a lot of Reiki, and I am a Reiki master, so I heal others. And sound healing, I'm into that. I'm into music frequency, and the frequencies, just healing frequencies in general. I collect crystals. I believe in the healing powers of crystals. Again, they call me woo-woo. It is what it is. I'll be that. That's what worked for me. You know? These things work for me. I go to some recovery Dharma meetings. I do CA, NA, HA, AA, Smart Recovery, All Recovery. I've tried it all. I do it all because it helps me. And I just continue to seek healing. And as I continue to seek healing, these things and modalities are brought to me. And I don't turn away from it. I keep an open mind and open heart and remain teachable, you know, and I've learned so much through this journey, you know, and I will continue to do that. And it's brought me an education, it's brought me some degrees, it's brought me, you know, it brings me all these things on these different levels and facets of life, you know. So yeah, God's telling me to hush. So thank you all for listening today.